Proper grown up.
Yeah.
Okay, we're live streaming. Okay. Hello, hi. If you're joining us on a live stream, we're just about to allow the audience in. It is the first HotHouse of 2026. I think it's about time we kicked off. Hello, everyone in the room today. Hope you're all well. We're about to kick off with the first PMO out of the year. So welcome everyone. Whoosh. Hopefully you're all right.
Hey, it's 2026.
It's 2026. Hurrah. Hopefully you're all right. And thanks for joining us for the kicking off for a new year. It's already been a really interesting month so far, John. I know you've been really busy and maxed out. How are you doing? You all right?
Oh, it's been a crazy month. I got back from Christmas and New Year in Seattle, and I was back for I think 2 days before I was off on a work meetings, workshops in Berlin. So my wife was not impressed with that one. I'm currently down in Devon because my mother's ill, so I've had to come down and see her. So apologies for the strange background and not looking my usual dapper self and having me at a weird angle. But we are where we are, and we work through it. We're agile. We're agile, as they say. Yes.
Hey, it's the first A word of the year. You'll notice that one of our quieter participants in Art House is not here today. She's actually doing some delivery, some training stuff. I believe she's doing it around business cases, which incidentally, you might have known from the kickoff of the year that we always go out with trends and things, and business cases did feature there. And we were talking about what we're going to do to kick off January's HotHouse, and it's like, well, surely when you get to the end of January, nobody wants to know about the trends anymore because that's the beginning of the year thing. But needless to say, I think we've already started to make some headways on looking at some of those trends. And if you did miss it, it is on the website. You can go back and have a look at the top 10 that we came up with. But we've already started, even just in these few weeks into the new year, we've already started to see some evidence actually of some of these things happening in the wild. But before we crack on, then let's just start off with a nice bit that we always like to do, which is getting into some of the latest news that's out and about there, and what might be good for PMO. Goes over to you, John. Here's your first little snippet.
Happy days, happy days. Yes, indeed. Welcome everybody. Yes, I've got a few things for you. Firstly, it's not been a big month for news. The big journals haven't done a drop to January edition now. And where I've sort of been looking across PMI's blogs and things like that, there's an awful lot of regurgitated stuff dressed up as something new, and I get all excited. Then I read it and I sort of go, "Oh, hang on a minute, we've kind of done this before," or they're reporting on something that we've reported on before. So yeah, I've kind of filtered through all that stuff, and I've got a few bits for you. Now, this one's an interesting one. I've shared bits and bobs from the Harvard Business Review in the past, where they've got something that is generally sort of, it's normally business things that have a little bit of interest for the PMO. But this January edition has had a few articles that have been project management and transformation related. I've not bothered talking about the project management one on here as well, because I'll let you discover that at your own pace and see what you think, and let me know what you think. For me, it was talking about project organizations, but then actually, when you read it, it seems to be talking about setting up micro businesses with their own P&Ls and delegating responsibility rather than what I would think of as a project organization. Have a read, let me know about that one. So that's not made into the news. What is interesting though is they seem to have gone very anti-transformation, which I found is quite interesting because when I'm looking at my LinkedIn feed at the moment, there's quite a few people on there doing the usual thing of saying PMO is dead, long live the new version of the PMO. And the latest, the hot trend for what to rename your PMO to this week is very much around being a transformation office. So it's quite amused me sort of having on one screen LinkedIn telling me that what I need is a transformation office, and on the other screen I've got Harvard Business Review saying, aren't we all a bit tired of transformation after transformation after transformation? And maybe there's a better way. So, interesting balance. So, this first one here, get off the transformation treadmill. Again, I'll share all the links after I finish talking on this one so you can read these at your leisure. But there's argument here saying that not only are organizations tired of continuously retransforming yourself, but actually investors in organizations are tired of it as well. They're sick of yet another director coming in, taking over something and saying, right, well, the first thing I'm going to do is transform everything radically. And they're worried about the amount of time that takes, the disruption to the organization that it takes, and how it slows things down. And there's so much taken on trust that it will be better once we've blown everything up. They're arguing in this one. There's a nice case study in the article that's worth a reading and pull some salient points out of. But there's four things they're calling out here to focus on. First one, interestingly, systems management, systems design is quite a big one they're advocating. Thinking about the organization as a system to deliver a mission. And I do wonder if we're sort of going full circle back to sort of systems thinking being more and more of a hot topic for us as we go forwards. Now, if you're interested in systems thinking, there is an awful lot of stuff on the House of PMO website, including Martin Parr's talk from PMO Learn in London 2025. I think there's a recent session you did with that had Chris on there as well, I think, if I recall. So do
Yeah.
have a look through for sorry. So go on, is it there was? Oh, that's good. I thought I recalled that one, but do have a look on the website. Loads of stuff on there about systems thinking, systems management on there, fundamentally thinking about the organization as a system and how you can make incremental changes to that to improve the organization without radical transformations every 5 minutes. Now, the other interesting one here is this detecting emerging realities before transformation becomes the only option. So, I mean, if you look at this, you sort of almost think, well, actually, is transformation a failure for the organization? And in some senses, I think it's valid to argue that it is. If you're at a stage of having to do a large transformation, does that mean there's something that's caught your organization unawares? Does that mean you're being caught out and now you're having to pedal hard to try and fix things again? But it does lead to the obvious question. I'm hearing you all asking in the background: how do we detect those emerging realities before transformation becomes the only option? And again, there's a few ideas for that. They're looking at a combination of effective measurement, balanced measurement of things. So not just looking at what the things are, not just looking at sort of sales growth, but actually looking at the sort of the hygiene factors and the safety factors that sort of back that up and support that as well. So I think there's an example in there from Airbnb, for example, which is topical given where I am right now, saying that they want their goal was massive growth, but not at the expense of their score, their net promoter scores, the feedback they were getting on the places, on the people that were staying with them. So those kind of balance scores there, and also simple things about talking to people and having conversations. There's some really good questions in the article, and I'm a big fan of useful questions that you can get out of these. And they've given us quite a nice list of questions to be posing when thinking about strategy sessions and thinking about the way you want to go. Lots of good ones in there that maybe you could use when you're thinking about the strategies in your organizations. How much value is at stake if we do this or don't do this, cost of delay, the range of results we're expecting, what's the probability of these coming to pass, a load of gems there that you can pick up and add to your crib list and just usefully drop into conversations and try and steer people towards thinking about the initiatives and ideas they want to take forwards. But in doing them in a sort of strategic way that allows you to align the organizational thinking with your execution thinking as well. All of which leads us smoothly, I think, to the next article from HBR on the subject, which was where was the next one? The next one here was this one, when strategy and execution fall out of sync. And a lot of you will look at this article and think there's not much that's new in here. But what I do like about it is the analogy they're using. Now, despite the picture they've chosen for this one, what they're really talking about here, the analogy they actually use in the article is a relay race. And I know we've talked about when you see relay races, a lot of people probably like me think about Agile and Scrum because that was the start of Scrum. They were using the idea of it being a relay race rather than doing the old model of passing off from design to developer, developer to test. Was actually can we all run forward together, more like a rugby team, which was where the idea of Scrum came from. So they kind of used that a lot, but they've taken it here and used it quite a different way. They're emphasizing the fact that if you're a relay team, yes, you need to be fast at what you're doing, but the real power comes in the handoffs. And they're looking at those and saying, actually, they're seeing sort of three common areas where you see problems where the handoffs fail between the execution side of things and the strategy side of things. And they've defined those as pace problems, where you've got strategy outrunning the actual capacity you've got, advocating calling out those things early, being clear on getting those aligned. And the key takeaway there, when strategy moves faster than execution can support, the handoff breaks long before the work even begins. And we see that a lot where we go into strategic planning sessions. The hopper is filled up to bursting. We put way much work in there that we can possibly do in a year. And then everybody spends the year getting blocked and tripping over each other and escalating everything rather than actually spending time delivering things faster. Lane problems is the second one. So the idea there is when roles don't actually match the work, emphasizing the importance there of looking at competence, capabilities, and actually matching the strengths you have in the organization to the handoff and the work that follows. And the final one there actually is an interesting one about managers. And they're talking about middle managers in general, but I think this applies to project managers, PMO managers, and actually, certainly if you work with software projects, some of the engineering team leads as well, is that quite often we don't take people on a strategic journey. We'll tell teams what we need them to deliver, but then we won't give them the wider context of it and what it is that they're moving towards. So big emphasis there on when the quote there is when managers can't see the strategy, they can't guide the work. So there's a challenge there, I think, for all of us to make sure we're not just telling people what to do with their projects, but we're actually making sure everybody understands the why. Because if they understand the why, they can feel a lot more empowered to make decisions, and we can be more confident they're going to make the right decisions for the organization as well. A couple there well worth reading. And again, I mentioned questions. There's a lot of good questions in there to be asking that you can add to your list of good questions to be asking in meetings. Moving on again. Now, those of you who have been around for a while and attending regularly, we do this every month. If you're new, hello, welcome, and make sure you sign up for next month's session. You'll have heard me talk about the Teal book. Now, when this first came out, this is a UK government guide to project delivery. It's a fantastic guide. It's good for people that aren't in the government as well. The UK government that actually developed Prince 2 as a standard. They don't use Prince 2 anymore. Everything is about the Teal book. This is their new way of working. Covers projects, programs, and portfolios. Does a lot of talk about the PMO in there as well, and PMOs supporting delivery. Now, what's interesting here is a lot of the stuff they've done with that is what PMOs do in organizations. End-to-end explanations for what good project delivery looks like, how we do things, practical content, support teams at different levels of maturity. But what's amazing, having pulled all this together and done a lot of work on this in government, they've actually gone and won an award for what they've done from the HM Treasury Digital and Data team. And it's not an award for bureaucracy and governance and control. It's only an Innovation of the Year award. So there we are, people. The work that you do in defining and codifying and helping your project teams deliver and move forwards is innovative. And government has awarded the team that built the Teal Book an Innovation of the Year award. And I challenge you to think about the work you do in defining how projects should be working, supporting project managers as innovation in its own right, because everything you do is innovative. And you're the ones that drive project delivery success throughout your organizations. So give yourselves a pat on the back and do look at the work you do as innovation. If you're not looking as innovation, look at it through that lens and think what you can be doing to drive innovation in your organization and to think about how your PMO can be innovative in how it delivers as well. And staying with the Teal Book for the last one here, I did. There was an article on the Hot PMO website about the Teal Book a while back, and there's a note in there because I've gone back and winced about it because it now looks out of date, saying the Teal Book is a weird thing because it's called the Teal Book to align with the names of a lot of other multicolored guidance from government for governments. But interestingly, it's not a book. It's a website, it's dynamic, and there isn't actually a physical copy you could buy. Well, that was true until this week because now you can buy a physical copy of the book. It's available from TSO. It's on pre-order now. It's going to be £40. It's version 3, which is the latest version of it. So for those of you like me that like a nice full bookshelf and like to flick through a book rather than clicking through a website. I'll share the link with you shortly to be able to go and download your to place your order, and then you can have your nice physical copy of the Teal Book at home to read as well. That's it. That's the headlines. So not much for January because there's not much around, but these are the key ones I've pulled out for you. If you've seen anything else that I should be reading, please, as always, let me know.
Yeah, well, it sounds like we're going to make our own news then, doesn't it, really? So, no, thank you, John. It's there's some really interesting, funny chats in there that no doubt you're going to have a look at as you put in the links to what you've just shared. But let's move on. What else we've been up to? So yeah, so we've been out and about. So while there's been a desert of news from other places, we've been making our own. And we had our annual PMO managers lunch. And for anybody who is not aware, it's what we do in order to be able to produce a new report each year. And we decided to get up to Scotland this time. A lot of the time we've done them in London. We have done one in Manchester a few years back, but we went north of the border and to talk about specialist roles in the PMO. So yeah, it's an interesting session which Eileen and I had been thinking about, well, what's going to be the subject for this year? Last year, you might remember, was resource management. And I thought this year we wanted to concentrate on something that will have a direct impact or a direct help on careers and things within PMO. So let's just give you a little bit of an insight. So we wanted to talk about specialist roles in the PMO. Obviously, we talk very much about the kind of generic roles, admin, analyst, manager, director. I think we all recognise that there are specialist roles within the PMO. Certainly, if you're working within a bigger PMO, you'll probably be very au fait with what some of those are. But when we look at things like the competency framework with just those 4 roles, it's about time that we probably focused a little bit more on some of the more prominent specialist roles. And also, we wanted to widen the conversation a bit more. So the way that we do these lunches, so people applied to attend, we wanted a good mix of different kind of sectors, different experiences where they've had with different roles. What we do, yes, we do feed people, but gosh, we do get them to work while they're eating. You can see some of the questions here that are on the screen. This is what was shared actually on the table. This is what we were working from. So you can see that we started very much just trying to understand about specialist roles versus generic roles. We were intrigued to know, well, when do specialist roles start to appear? Is there any kind of commonality there? What drives them? What we already seen in practice? Before moving on to the main course, where we actually wanted to go into a little bit more detail on some of the kind of more prominent specialist roles and not so prominent as it turned out. And then also having a little look into the future about what might be coming up in terms of the specialist roles within PMO. So interestingly for us then, I mean, there's a lot of insights. I mean, we'll be sharing that. It gets kicked off at the conference in June. But there were a lot of things that throughout that lunch that light bulb moments, things that we'd not really thought about before. We thought that specialist roles were something that you predominantly find in larger PMOs, but actually that's not the case. We had a lot more insights in terms of actually it's not necessarily a specialist role that somebody's doing all the time. It's that they might be combining specialisms in what they're doing. So you can see there that there might be benefits and planning and reporting. They become the specialist person within their PMO for a number of different things. And actually, specialist roles are more of a part-time thing rather than being a full-time thing. So, for example, there about PMO analyst, then having a specialism that gets called upon. Lots of different things, loads of different insights. Roles that did come up and did get talked about quite a lot were around governance. We was is there a governance specialist? Apparently so, and that's why we do this and get people around the table to share their actual experiences. So quite a lot of big discussion around the specialist roles around governance. Obviously, data. Data is a big one. I think we've seen that over the last 4 or 5 years starting to rise up. Talking data, quality showed its head. And obviously, I think for a lot of people, they recognise that benefits management is a specialism, but it's probably one of the more well-known ones. But in terms of, just some quick insights, is another way to look at them is in terms of where these specialist roles were popping up are probably in these kind of categorizations. And that last one there being around capability in terms of being able to improve capability of project management within the organization. So that was some specialisms around things like training and knowledge building and that kind of stuff. There's going to be a lot more, obviously. We record 3.5 hours of people talking. It's hard to pull out exactly what to share with you because it was literally this last week. But I think what we're hoping to get from it, as I said, will be some insights into these roles, where they fit within the kind of PMO ecosystem of careers, how they happen, how people can develop in those roles. All that kind of good stuff will be in that report. And we just thought this year it'd be really good let's just have something, for us. Resource management was, very much about obviously a project management competency. But yeah, this year we're going to be focusing on the career path, career development type stuff for PMOs. Again, just thinking back to some of the trends and things, that's certainly one of them that we're wanting to look at. So that was out and about. That was Glasgow. There was more happening in
That
Glasgow.
sounds like it was amazing. I'm really jealous that I wasn't there for that one, Lindsay. It looks like it was great. I think one of the things I always find interesting about the specialist roles as well is how you can how you think about building your PMO and the skills you need in it. But as PMOs mature, you develop people, is you get specialist roles that kind of evolve. Not because of demand from I mean, you do get the ones that evolve because of a problem in the business, but also you find skills and strengths in your PMO that you can double down on. I've seen a lot of PMO teams where they've ended up with a very core strength around reporting, for example, and then Power BI, and the PMOs sort of transform from being just reporting on projects to actually being the specialists in reporting across the whole organization, transcending project management and project portfolio management, but actually strategic reporting and everything because they've got that expertise there. So there's a lot of sort of very specialist roles bubble up from that side of things as well, from a need in PMO capacity that ends up being a wider service that is delivered to the wider organization as well. But yeah, there's some great roles out there, and fascinating how different PMOs evolve and need different skill sets and different experts around.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry.
it's when people were applying to come and take part in the lunch, you can probably imagine the questions that we were asking about their experiences of what kind of roles that they've seen or working alongside. And the one that we purposely not mentioned here and didn't actually come up at lunch, which was really interesting, was any that were specialisms around agile, which I know that's your bag, John. But you just don't you think that's quite interesting that it didn't come up? Do you think we kind of like, I mean, it is a specialist role for some organisations and some PMOs, but yeah, it's interesting what came up and what didn't, and then quality reared its head, which
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. But some are more interesting specialist roles than others, But yeah, it's certainly an interesting insight. Looking forward to sharing that with you later on in the year. But that's what we were doing. That was
Looking
out and
forward to reading.
about. Out and about. Quick ad break. This is more about giving you a bit of an insight into what's coming up. I just want to give you a heads up in terms of a session that will be happening in a couple of weeks. This is an intermediary report that will be coming out. Really interesting stuff that came out of our Blue Light PMO Summit last year, late in November. A really good comprehensive report. And I'm really pleased to say that actually it doesn't matter if you're working in blue light or not. Yes, there are some specific things in there, but I would say there's a really, really good insights from PMOs across 8 different challenges. But they go into quite a lot of detail in terms of what works, what doesn't work, and the kind of actions that they want to take. We recorded 12 different tables of people speaking on these challenges. So you can imagine the amount of data and insights that we got. Took a while to kind of get it into some form, but we're releasing that on the 13th of Feb. Hope you can join us. You can just sign up on the website. It's going to also be live streamed as well. In case you're not aware, House of PMO is putting its shoulder into the project management industry. We are doing a new event which is going a little bit wider than PMO. It's also harping back a little bit to my past as well. I used to get involved in supporting Project Challenge, which used to be a UK project management industry event, and greatly missed. It is a free event, which means that it's a great place for people to come together. There's going to be a lot going on here. If you've not seen it already, please do go and have a look. We will certainly be there. House of PMOs, PMOs will be well represented in terms of some good content for you to tap into. But the really great thing about it being free is I think it's a great way for you with your own network to say, I'm attending, come down, let's have some coffee, let's get out of our home offices and yeah, just meet up for the day. And incidentally, it's my birthday on the 21st of April. So yeah, you're welcome to bring a little present for me as well. And then finally, it's obviously we do it every year. I'm sure it drives people mad. We're going to be releasing some of the keynotes next week, which means that the preview rate ends. So that means that we've always run a preview rate, which was trust us. If you've been before, you know how good these things can be. Trust us. Get it at a preview rate before you see the agenda. Anyway, it comes to an end. So yeah, that's what's going on and what's coming up. Anything I missed, John?
Well, there's a big one that you've missed, not because you've missed it, because we haven't actually got it published yet. But sneak a preview for those here. For those of you who are in London or in the London area, we are doing a PMO flash mob meetup in person on the 18th of February. So watch out for that one appearing on the website next week. But yeah, we'll be face to face. I think Chancery Lane's at High Holborn area on the 18th, meeting up in person. So if you want to come and see us and talk PMO stuff with like-minded PMO people, pop that one in the diary, and it will be on the events page of the House of PMO website next week.
Yeah. There's a load that we're not putting up there just yet, and but they will be coming up, and yeah, different face-to-face events and all of that kind of good stuff that you know and love from the House of PMO. It's a quick call, just to check that you're all still awake, and this is harping back to an evening that we had after PMO lunch, managers' lunch. We had an evening all about data. And what I wanted to do is tell you obviously a little bit more about that. But I just wanted to know this quick question, which is on your screen right now. And if you're watching this on a live stream through LinkedIn or YouTube right now, We're asking what's the biggest PMO data challenge you have right now? Things like, is it too much data, not enough insight? Is it data quality is poor or inconsistent? What about your tools? Are they disjointed? What about reporting that it's taking too long? Or is it that you're struggling to turn the data into the decisions? So that's what we're asking people right now. It's going to lead in really nicely into the next section. So I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to share the results. And essentially, we've got some middlings there that are data quality is poor or inconsistent. It takes the top spot there, 37%, followed closely by reporting takes too much manual effort. Kind of leads us on really nicely into the next bit because I do want to tell you a little bit more about what happened and the insights that we had around this in Glasgow. So a little bit more of an out and about, but we've got somebody else here also to help tell us about it. And hopefully he's in the audience right now. I'd like to introduce Michael. Michael, are you here? Are you
Yes,
here?
I am. There's a lot of photos of me there as well.
Hello.
Hopefully you can hear
Hello.
me.
Hello, hi, nice to see you again. Michael kindly, you can see him there on the right-hand side, came along to the lunch because of his experiences and expertise around data and the specialist roles that are obviously popping up there. But Michael also, this poor man, I'm kind of tapping him up quite a bit here. But Michael also joined us at the PMO conference in Edinburgh. You can see him there. Michael is a expertise around the whole PMO and data space, and certainly great company name, Precision PMO, which is actually bang on for what it is that you're doing. But Michael, you kindly ran a session for us in Glasgow last week. And it was brilliant. I've just been finishing writing it up, and it'll be out on the in the members' library on Monday. But I just wanted to well, number one, welcome you to HotHouse.
Thank
Can
you
you
very
just
much.
tell everybody a little bit more about how you managed to get to this space where, you know, your PMO and data is your kind of bread and butter now?
Yes. So thank you for having me. It's nice to see everyone. Yeah, it's always a bit of a weird story as to how I got to here. But my background kind of explains it. So I came from a financial services background, right? Highly regulated. And then I joined a sort of startup in the tech sphere, right? Specifically focusing on ServiceNow. So that kind of blend of heavy operational environment into tech forward, mega pace, let's just go after everything and we don't want to be regulated at all, kind of naturally led me to this point where the company I was in started to just grow and grow and grow and grow. I actually, when I was in the kind of financial services, seen PMO in a different light because it was heavily regulated, processed. Then, when I started kind of moving into the tech sphere, I realized how to apply a lot of the data principles to something like a PMO. And where traditionally it was more IT based, I found myself at this kind of little juncture where it was like actually IT plus the kind of PMO space plus how it impacted things like company performance, P&L. And in that world, it's all focused around valuations and how you can make sure the performance and P&L is the main thing that you're doing. So kind of led me to this point where over the last year, I've kind of been going out and speaking to a lot of people, and just where my understanding of how AI and tooling and all these types of things are driven by data, there was just a little bit of a gap there, where hopefully I'm trying to educate and explain. I have a weird passion about this stuff for some unknown reason, but that's kind of where I've found myself in this space. I'm really interested in how the future is going to impact what we do just now and how we can almost brace for that and really catapult forward within it.
Yeah. So last week we had a session where he was talking about not chasing the single source of the truth, and we always blurt that out. Why shouldn't they be chasing the single source of truth?
So yeah, so well that was one of the it was a really cool session to be able to do, but again it's this thing of like where traditionally it was like data itself was just seen as a thing or like a fixed point, right? And actually we talk a lot about reporting on data. What's happening is the way that tooling, and you'll see this, like even Power BI, which is just like an analytical tool, but any tools that are feeding into this, the data is just becoming so unwieldy, right? That actually it's constantly evolving, it's living, it's breathing, all these types of things. And that you're never really going to get a perfect single source of truth in that, right? But the debt that's being created is so massive that it's really unhelpful to structure it like that. Because then actually what you do is you spend a lot of your time chasing like a perfect world that will never exist. So it's kind of like the whole session was trying to reframe. And sometimes, and Lindsay, you've kept me honest here because I get sometimes too detailed. In fact, one of the first conversations we had about the session, you were like, "Don't do that." You were like, "Don't start there, start here." But it was centered around why data is like a living, breathing thing that constantly evolves, but also it's the reporting on the back of how much data there is isn't actually going to be that useful until we start controlling the flow of what we're tracking, how we're tracking it, how often, and
Yeah.
also just accepting that it changes
Yes.
and it's not going to be perfect.
No, absolutely. I mean, the people will see the members in the members library. The exercise that you did in Glasgow was brilliant, and I think and I know there's some of the people that were there on the session. That is literally you were giving away thousands of pounds worth of consultancy.
I know. It's a bit
And then
stupid. I didn't know it
I'm
was getting
sorry, but
recorded.
I put the entire exercise in to show people. But can you just because what again, just I'm not going to be able to do it as well as you do. You were talking about the things that are really should be really important for PMO people to focus on. Cadence being one of them. There was three of them. Tell us what those are, please.
Yeah, so basically, like the session itself, we obviously just it was really good to be able to show people that like, look, I'm involved in like the data side, right? So the zeros and what I want to be taking extracts and .csv files, and I want to be able to show you the sort of gold within there. But we never done any of that at the session, right? And it was actually well, like what we done was we just listed everything out. And what you care more about is how often it's updated, which is the cadence, right? And then you can kind of map that to like how quickly decisions are made, right? So
Yeah,
just and then what you can do is you can start spotting mismatches with how the data is formulated and the decisions that are made, right? The other parts of it is you want to focus on like the hygiene of it. So how you keep it up to date and who keeps it up to date, the ownership of it. And the last part was around the verification, which is how much you trust that data. So the exercise was like basically taken from that point, just showing how these simple overlays can have a massive impact on the data itself
yes,
without getting caught up or bogged down by the details of the data.
yeah,
Just simply by naming and showing how often you update it, you can
yeah.
start seeing gaps.
Yeah. Do you know what one of the eureka moments? I mean, Tanya, I don't know if you want to come off and say because your group when you were doing this, there were like some real moments of like, gosh, so this data source that we've got has the highest impact in terms of the decisions that might be made from it, but we trust it the least. I mean, what? And it
Yeah,
was essentially doing that kind of thing, wasn't it? And you got loads of insights out of it because you were lucky enough to be there with some colleagues to
yeah. I was very lucky because Glasgow Uni, we joined, like the PMO pack joined. It was, I think, like three of us or four of us. And we had a whole lot of light bulb moment where we were like, actually, the source with the biggest impact is the one that we agreed that we trust least. And the only one that we said had quite a high level of trust, it didn't really matter. So there was a whole thing of us being like, I'm in some of the pictures, and you can see me having like mental breakdowns and like, why, why is this happening? And especially the cadence bit that you guys were talking about, just Michael sort of forcing us to talk about cadence, which I will agree, like actually I will admit that I found this not really useful in the beginning, but when we were talking about the cadence, we sort of finally saw that everything was so out of sync and it was having a real impact. Like in the end, we came to the conclusion that basically our strategy being really off from the way we plan our finances had an impact on the way that we trust our PPM tool. Like it was mind blowing.
yeah, no, brilliant. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. And it's always good to, and like I said, in the library, we have laid out that exercise that you could actually do it with your team as well. Back to you, Michael, then. So you saw the poll results about everybody talking about, it's one of the biggest issues, the fact that the data is in a mess and all of that kind of stuff. What should PMO people be focusing on when it's like that? It's like there's too much data, it's all over the place. What should they be doing? Where should they be starting with this stuff?
So for me, it's genuinely about simplifying that whole like so data itself. I think people switch off when they think about it, right? And actually, just before that, is one of the things on the other group was they thought they had far too much data, but actually it was how often it was being reported was unwieldy, so they couldn't sift through it in time, right? So essentially, what we're trying to do, even with that exercise, is try and simplify it and make it a little bit more engaging so that you don't get scared by data. You don't immediately think you've got to be a data scientist in order to sort or figure out how your gathering data is impacting a lot of how projects are delivered. So, what you should focus on is simplifying it down to what matters to the business, right? And what I mean by that is I was really lucky in my last role to be able to be right on the finances, right? So to be reporting into the CFO and seeing a lot of the financial information there. But a lot of what we done was around cost control, and it was about your P&L, but also how revenue directly impacted the business, right? Now, when you get such a core like that, it's really easy to start building data sources around that specific thing, right? So almost what you want to do is simplify it down to what matters, because then that makes your job from a data perspective a lot easier. Rather than looking at the 30 sources, you can narrow it down to one, two, three that are going to impact the outcomes that the business are wanting from the PMO.
Yeah.
So, like, hopefully, like, just if you're going to take anything away, it is that step back and maybe engaging with senior leadership around like what matters here, because I think that we can start growing that. And the idea is you don't want to go from 30 down to three, then build back up to 30. What you want to do is go from 30 to three and maybe end up with seven. And then
Yes.
those seven ones, those are the ones that take up the majority of the time. But actually, you don't have to discard the rest. You just have to bring them in every now and then. That
Yes.
makes sense.
Absolutely. No, I mean that was one of the insights, is just looking at the data sources and, like you say, um, trying to figure out which ones are the most useful, most trusted, and are going to have the biggest impact.
Yeah. And it's harder than it sounds, right?
Of
Because
course
like
it is.
and this is the thing, is like this is what like the cool thing of what I've been like lucky enough to work with some organizations on is
Yeah.
that because of when I first started, there's actually a lot of fear from the PMOs that I engaged with. Because of like you're coming to replace me type of thing. And I was like, not at all. It's very much adjacent. And like you've no doubt seen that. It's just that it's when you go adjacent, you say, no, I'm here to help, but actually kind of try and show you how it can supercharge a lot of what we're doing and simplify. So it's
Yeah.
almost like you're using a complex topic to simplify a lot of how things are run.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, the stuff that you did will be in the library on Monday. So absolutely do go and check it out. By the way, you've probably not seen a lot of this chat that's going on because they're fascinated with all the guitars. We've got Bonnie the dog at the back, so it's like
Nice.
there's a lot going on for everybody. But Michael, people want to know more about it. They can connect with you on LinkedIn. You share some great videos, simplifying, which is I would say is probably your USP, simplifying some of this stuff. So give Michael a follow. If you can drop your LinkedIn URL in after, that'd be great, Michael. And of
Definitely.
course, we'll be sharing this segment of ours, and no doubt we're going to be tapping you up again for more, because this is what we look for here at the House of PMO. Some of these subjects are really difficult. They've been on the too hard pile for too long. And if we can start to make some headways by making it simplify and things that people can do practically, that's what it's all about. And that's why we love what you're doing and love your stuff. So go and check him out. Thank you very much for joining us, Michael. Look, brilliant. Thank you very much. And
Thanks for having me.
yeah, I'll let you give Michael a share and ask him why he's got guitars on the back of it. I'm not gonna tell you. But yeah, thank you very much, Michael. That's lovely.
Thank you.
John, I think we're coming up to the end of the road, end of a session. Are we all good? Anything else to add?
No, we're absolutely good. Another great session. Lots of news and takeaways there, and I think a lot to think about for everyone about that. I'd imagine everyone's come away from this not only thinking freshly about some of their sort of the transformations they have running and how to smooth some of those out, but also looking at their data in fresh ways and thinking of how they can sort of simplify the messages and align that to the business as well, based on everything we've just learned there. So yeah, a great session as ever.
And he's also shared why he's got guitars. Well, I'll let him do that. But before we go, we've got stuff coming up. There's actually 2 sessions back to back next week. It's because House of PMO and PMO Learning have come together. So that's why we're sharing what's going on with the PMO Learning stuff. So if you are into business cases, Eileen will be taking you through that off the back of what she's doing today and why she's not here. And then for anybody member, we're getting into some career hour stuff, job hunting. And I want that to be more about, people, if you're currently job hunting or you're thinking about it, let's have a chat. Let's just have a little bit of a, what's going on? How can we try and help? So that's my kind of bread and butter. And of course, conference and forum that we've already talked about. That is it. We are bang on time. Excellent, excellent stuff. We'll be back next month, last Friday in the month. So keep on PMOing, everyone. And you know where we are if you need us. All right, take care. See you later. Thank you. Bye.